Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 10th Annual Neighborhood Best Practices Conference. Let's give y'all a hand just for showing up this early on a Saturday. I thank each and every one of you for being here, and I don't want to neglect saying that our volunteers are what made this happen. We had a committee that planned, and we actually got along with one another the whole time, and they had some great ideas. So any of the committee members, please stand and let everybody give you a big round of applause. Come on, Jean Bailey, I know you're one. Some of our staff, we're good. All right, well, this year's theme is the power of us, meaning we make a difference. We have power and control, and these young people are going to show us what they do too. And so we want to create a safe and civil community. And I think it's so important, you know, things are going on all around us. And it just takes us being kind to one another and taking a minute to see what's going on. You never know what's going on inside someone. So just think about that today. So I hope everybody enjoys their day. And it is my great honor, and it has to be because she's my boss. Carla Williams Scott is, I'm proud to announce, she is our director of the Department of Neighborhoods, and she's going to come up here and tell you a little bit more. So again, welcome, and please give Carla a round of applause.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Gail. Can we give Gail a round of applause? She has done a yeoman's job in getting this conference together. Gail Gray and Toya Johnson from my team have just done, like I said, a yeoman's job in getting this together. So again, good morning, everybody. I'm so glad you are here with us. It is a beautiful day in the neighborhood. And it's a beautiful day in Columbus as well. As Gail said, you know, we have a great conference planned for you, so I hope you'll stick around and take advantage of everything that we have here for you. I don't know how many of you have probably heard our mayor say that his top 3 priorities for the city of Columbus are neighborhoods, neighborhoods, neighborhoods. And so to that end, he created our department, the Department of Neighborhoods. And our focus is to make sure that every neighborhood in this community has access to city resources and that all of our residents have access to vital and great programming that we have and services that we have in our community. We're grateful again to have our outstanding sponsors. So again, thank you Lowe's, Fifth Third, and United Way of Central Ohio. This year's theme is the power of us. Creating a safe and civil community is a call to action for all of us in our community. You know, in the news, we hear everything that's going on, and sometimes it just is not so pleasant, and people are not being so nice to each other. And so we wanted to build a conference around what can we do to help create a civil society for all of us here in Columbus. It's about getting back to basics and treating others as they would like to be treated. Civility is claiming, caring for one's identity, needs, and beliefs without degrading others in the process. Our keynote speaker is going to help to ensure that Columbus is a leader in this area of creating a civil community. In the wake of police-involved shootings, attacks on places of worship, marginalized groups, and community unrest, Carl Smallwood participated in and convened stakeholders in Columbus under the name Columbus Community Trust. The trust is an initiative to transform community division into forward-looking action that builds trust among residents and community leaders to make Central Ohio a more just, resourceful, and resilient community. Mr. Smallwood was a partner in the Columbus office of Voorhees, Sater, Seymour, and Peace. He focused on litigation, arbitration, and mediation of complex civil legal disputes. It is my pleasure to introduce Carl Smallwood.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Scott. And thanks to the entire Department of Neighborhoods, to Director Scott, to Gail Gray, to Toya Johnson, and Abdi Sufi, who have been wonderful in inviting me to speak with you this morning and in making this, in some respects, easy to accept this invitation. I love the idea of a meeting like this, and I'm going to talk to you about some things that I hope will help us build better and stronger relationships, to form deeper bonds, and to explore some tools and processes that will help you in your neighborhoods and us in our community make our community stronger and more resilient. So I'm going to elicit your thoughts. That's part of the reason for having this thing on the screen. I'm going to get you to participate in a conversation with me about what divides us as communities and as neighbors. I'm going to talk a little bit about lessons we've learned from other cities who've studied this issue and have dealt with divisions in their neighborhoods. And as Director Scott said, I'm going to talk to you about a movement called Community Trust, Columbus Community Trust, that is designed to build trust within our community and make our community more resilient. So it's not just me. I actually brought two people with me today who've been here since the beginning, and I'd like to introduce them to you briefly now, and I'll talk about them in a little bit more detail in the future. The first is Nancy Rogers. Nancy Rogers is an emeritus professor at the College of Law at Ohio State, the Moritz College of Law. She's on the executive committee of something called the Divided Communities Project, and she's a former Attorney General of the state of Ohio. So Nancy will perhaps have some role in what happens today in assisting us. The other is Bill Froelich, and I know he has a role in this because he's actually on the laptop right now making a lot of this stuff work. Bill is the Deputy Director of the Divided Communities Project at the Moritz College of Law and is a fellow at the College of Law as well. So it's a rare conference where we tell you to pull out your cell phones at the beginning. I will ask you to mute them, so that we don't have buzzes and rings and things like that. But I'm going to ask you to use them to participate. And if you haven't already and you're so inclined, go ahead and pull them out. All you need to do is text to the number 37607. You text these 4 letters, DCP1. You'll get a response, and then whatever you type into your text box will appear on slides like this one. And there's some other slides that I'm going to have in a minute to get some more more answers to questions that we'd like to explore. So, and I guess let me ask this, since there may be folks who aren't quite as comfortable using cell phones, whether there's anybody in the audience who'd like to share a word or two with us this morning about what their hopes are for Columbus's future. Bill's got a microphone. Yes, sir. Engaging. Thank you. Thank you. What part of town are you from?
I live in Linden now.
Linden. Thank you. Engaging. Anybody else? I mean, there are lots of words up here. Community, equality, progressive, connection, new Americans, housing, peace. And the more people that text a response, as you know, in a word cloud, that word gets larger. So we're going to come back to that in a minute, to that word cloud. I want to talk to you, though, for a few minutes about where this all began. And so I want to take you to another time and to another city. The city is Ferguson, Missouri, and the time is August of 2014. And I'm going to show you a short video, and the video has to do with the issues that occurred on August 9, 2014, when Michael Brown was shot. Now, this is emotional content, so I will warn you. I hope this isn't triggering for anybody. I was somewhat careful in choosing the video, but I think it's important for us to remember what can happen in communities when there is division and violence. So, Bill, if we can.
48 days! 48 days! 48 days! 48 days! Mike Brown is not the first incident of the police killing a citizen that was unarmed in Ferguson. Just like in the city of St. Louis, just like in the city of Atlanta, city of Detroit, city of wherever you go.
Please don't shoot me dead. I got my hands on my head. Please don't shoot me dead.
What will it take for the police officers to work? They will never work with us. Whenever you have to buy cameras and buy other different equipment to put on police officers that are already supposed to take an oath to protect the community, whenever you have to do that, that further lets you know that they're not here to protect us in the first place. So bridging the gap between citizens and the police department will never happen because in their eyes, it's no gap to bridge. They are doing their job. They are doing what they are told to do.
What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. Mike Brown means we got to fight back. 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 Fight back. Fight back. Fight back. Fight back.
Some of the folks who were arrested last night were really key leaders.
Fight back. 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 Mike Brown means we got to fight.
The courage, the grassroots organizing, they're setting an example. Not only for the youth in Ferguson and St. Louis, but for the older folks in Ferguson and St. Louis.
So that was Ferguson in 2014, and that video, I mean, I see there was a young lady here with an Ohio University sweatshirt on. That video was produced by an Ohio University student who is a photojournalist, and it happens to be my son. But he was moved by what was happening in Ferguson and drove to Ferguson without his mother or my knowledge to do interviews and to talk to people and to begin to record what was happening. And that's part of the power of youth. And that's why I'm so thrilled that we've got some young people with us here today, because they're the ones who are really going to lead us into the future. But it's not only about shooting, it's about what happens before these acts occur, and it's what happens after these events occur. And so I want to talk to you for just a few minutes about where we are. You can't open a newspaper, you can't look at television, you can't surf the internet without finding conflict. The conflict isn't only in police-community relations, although there clearly is that sort of conflict in what we receive every single day. And it isn't just in Ferguson and Baltimore and New York and Minneapolis, it's in Columbus, Ohio. We had a summer in 2016 none of us wants to relive. So it's visiting our communities. And it isn't just the summer of 2016. And it isn't simply police involved or police community relations, it's racial divisions within our communities and between our communities that causes conflict and tension in our communities. It's immigrants, refugees, asylum seekers who are blamed for causing conflict in our community. At the national level, the conversation is almost impossible. You almost can't listen to it. Go back to your countries. Go back to where you came from. And that's coming not simply from Washington, D.C. You hear it in Columbus, Ohio. There are citizens and neighbors of ours who hear those kinds of comments simply because they came from another country. And it's not just that. There are religious differences that sometimes bring communities into conflict as well. We have the second largest Somali population in the country. And almost all of the Somali population in our community are Muslim. And the Council on CARE, American Islamic Relations, estimates that there are 70,000 Muslims in Central Ohio. Not simply Somalis, but Muslims in Central Ohio. Do you think they're free from bigotry from other parts of this community? Do you think they're free from having people make comments about them or to them? They're not. They're not. And if you're Jewish in this community, and even if you aren't, you will remember well the Tree of Life synagogue shooting almost 1 year ago today in Pittsburgh. And in the wake of that shooting, a number of faiths, I want to say Muslim brothers and sisters, but a number of faiths went to their local synagogues to stand with their Jewish brothers and sisters in an act of solidarity. And so there are lots of reasons that people find to divide themselves and segregate themselves, and that's what causes division in our community. So how do we, and I guess maybe one more thing, which again is very relevant to our community, the LGBTQ part of our community. 3 years ago, there was a shooting in Orlando, Florida, at the Pulse nightclub that was at the time the deadliest mass shooting in the United States. It has since been surpassed, but it was an attack on, well, it was a perceived attack on the hottest gay nightclub in Orlando. And there are tensions in our community as well that have to do with our citizens not welcoming wholeheartedly citizens who are LGBTQ. So it's a reality that we live in, and the question then becomes, how do we create a safe community, and how do we create a community that's civil? So let's bring this to Columbus, and now that you all know how to use this technology, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. The first question is, what words come to mind when you consider tensions that divide our community or result in conflict? I've talked to you about some of the things that divide communities around the country. You tell me what you see as tensions present in our neighborhoods here that divide our community. And I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that, and then Bill, I'll ask you if you can with the microphone maybe to walk around and we'll get a comment or two from somebody who doesn't have the cell phone technology or it's not quite working. All right. And exactly, this word cloud works. So ignorance, racism, race, poverty, fear. I think it was the Dalai Lama who said the opposite of trust is fear. The Dalai Lama has a Twitter handle. It's @Dalai-Lama. He said it on September 11 this year. The opposite of trust is fear. All right, very good. Very good. I'm sorry, were we going to get somebody to who wants to make a comment? No? Okay, let's move to the next one. So we've got a pretty good sense of the number of things, sexuality, anti-homelessness, religions, sorry, things keep moving, apathy. All right, let's do the next one. Does our community deal constructively with division when compared to other communities? And here you have three choices. You can either say that you think that this needs more focus and attention, operates well, or is one of our community's strengths, the dealing constructively with the divisions that we just talked about, or that you just told me exist in our community. I'll give you a minute to respond to this one. And we'll drill down on it a little bit more. But you know, every time we ask this question, and I've asked this question in several cities, when I've talked about community trust and I've talked about things that divide communities, and in every community where I've asked this question, it is startling that very few identify dealing constructively with division as one of the community's strengths. The first slide you responded to had your hopes in it, and I hope for us that it becomes one of our strengths. The next question drills down a little bit more into one area, and that is police-community relations. How does your community deal constructively with division? Specifically, are police collaboratively involved with the community? And again, your choices here are it either needs more focus and attention, it operates well, or it's one of our strengths as a community. Okay. And this one seems to indicate that the police are more collaboratively involved than perhaps the first slide would have shown, but that there's still room for improvement clearly in police-community relations, and that this is an area that ought to receive more of our focus and attention. Yes, ma'am.
Most of the areas now have police liaisons.
Yes.
And I think that's why that number is higher, because we have people that we can contact direct rather than calling the police department, because when we call them, then they pass it on to whoever handles whatever our complaint is. And I think that's why that's so high. But I'm not sure about the other.
Well, thank you. And could everybody hear? I guess we have a microphone, so. And I was going to ask, if you wouldn't mind, would you tell us your name and what neighborhood you're from?
Okay, my name is Maudie Grace, and I'm with the Southside Area Commission.
Thank you. Okay. And right behind, I think there was one other comment, Bill.
Hi, I'm Lisa, and today I'm representing a statewide organization called Action Ohio. We're a statewide group of former foster youth, and one major push forward in Ohio is that up until last year, Ohio was the only state in the nation in which police were not mandated reporters of child abuse. We were the only state in the nation where if a police officer came to a home and the child was being abused, the police were not reported to express that. And the way that that impacts our community is, let's say that there's a domestic violence situation or a child is trying to defend their parent or defend themselves, that child might end up in juvenile detention. But over the past year, that changed. So we're still hoping that that gets rolled out so that the police know how to handle those situations where children might be in danger.
Thank you. And I think this sort of neighborhood conference that you're going to have today, as I said, will permit us to sort of create some lines of communication to make sure that the concerns are known to all segments of the community, but also in particular to the police and to the authorities of the city who are in a position to change some of those policies. So thank you very much. Let me ask you one or two more questions. This one deals with public agencies. It's similar to the last question. Does our community deal constructively with division through the public agencies, processes, and informal practices that may exist from the agencies? Again, this is not police specific, but more departments, public officials, the agencies that represent the government. Does anybody, Bill still has a microphone, does anybody want to make a comment about this one?
To me, I've seen an upswing in the racial tensions, and it's not just the Somalis or the religious factors. I think that the LB whatever. I cannot remember all them letters. With the community being bombarded with that information, it's drawing more negative attention to those people rather than a more positive.
Okay.
Because to me, as long as you treat me with respect, I treat you with respect, we should all get along.
Okay. Yeah, you know, I think lack of familiarity is one of the things that often divides us. And so having greater familiarity is helpful. And I guess, you know, when you sometimes struggle with a description of something that you haven't dealt with very much, I guess I begin with sort of, what do you intend? If your intention is pure, struggle with it. Talk to me, let's learn. So don't be embarrassed about struggling with the description, and obviously you continue to sort of talk and learn. So, all right, we've got responses to the, okay.
Well, my name is Christian Angel. I am kind of from a couple communities, but my main focus right now, I'm the assistant principal at Linden McKinley. So the Linden area is my love now because that's where my babies are from. And so with this question here, it says specifically, do public agencies have processes and informal practices? So what I have learned being in that community, there are a number of organizations, commissions, and so on and so forth in the Linden area. A whole lot, more than I ever knew was in existence. But the challenge has been, where are you? I see you when you come to some of our meetings. I see you if I come out to some of your meetings, but when I talk to my families or my kids, they have no idea. And they live in the Linden area every day. I work there. I mean, I may as well live there. I'm there every day. But so the informal practices, I don't see them enough. Like, I know they're there, I know they exist, and I think it's so many and it's so fragmented, is figuring out a way to make them all come together and have a bigger impact. And then we can I can see the impact it has on the community. Because right now, it's still struggling.
Yeah, and I think that that provides an opportunity for us, and I say for us, but for the agencies, public agencies of the city, to be more present to address the issues that may lead to civil unrest. I'm going to ask one or two more questions, and then there's some things I need to share with you before Gail cuts me off. Let's see. Let's skip this one. You know, the question is, do we have an early warning system that tells us things are bubbling up in our communities? And is it, do we have an effective early warning system? Okay, and I think I'm gonna need to move on, unfortunately. I do want to talk to you about Community Trust and the Divided Communities Project for just a few minutes. The Divided Communities Project, as I said, is something that grew out of the Ohio State University Law School. In 2015, Nancy Rogers and other people who are involved in dispute resolution around the country gathered in Columbus, Ohio, with faith leaders, public officials, law enforcement officials, community leaders, nonprofit leaders, to look at whether there was a role for people who resolve disputes to assist communities in addressing the conflicts they face. And they looked at they looked at Sanford, Florida, as an example. Sanford, Florida was where Trayvon Martin was shot in 2012. And in the aftermath of the Trayvon Martin shooting and the things that happened after the shooting, the trial, and, indictment, all of those things, they had a very different result than the people in Ferguson, Missouri had. So the question was, why? What causes that? Okay, so that's the Divided Communities Project. And I'll share one or two of the lessons we learned from those looks in a few minutes. Once the Divided Communities Project had begun its work, they began to work with several communities in the country where there were opportunities to address divisions within the community. And Columbus, Ohio is one of those communities. There's a community in Menlo Park, California, Rochester, New York, Orlando, Florida, that the Ohio State University folks are working with. And so they have supported some of the work that I have done and that we have done. The outgrowth of this conference back in 2015 was that in Columbus, we looked at what had happened in the past. And for those of you who've been Columbus residents for a while, and so that doesn't include the students, you may remember that in the late 70s, at a time when Columbus was looking at school desegregation, there was a case pending before Judge Robert Duncan, who was an African-American judge on the Federal District Court in Columbus. He was going to decide the school desegregation case in Columbus. There were a number of community stakeholders. A number of them were lawyers, members of bar associations, business leaders, nonprofits. Amos Lynch used to run the Column Post. I mean, there were a number of folks, the Urban League, there were a number of participants. And what they did was they said, look, what can we do as a community to help our community deal with the decision that's going to be coming out of the federal court that may order desegregation and cause conflict in our community? Because what had happened in Boston and some other communities when a federal judge said the schools must be desegregated, they are unconstitutional as they stand right now, you are not receiving an equal education in a segregated system, violence erupted in some of those communities. And folks in Columbus said, we want a different outcome. So they began to work with community leaders, community members in neighborhoods and education. Judge Duncan issued the desegregation order that Columbus schools must be desegregated, and it was largely a peaceful transition in Columbus, Ohio. So that was the model we looked at and began to adopt in Columbus. And as a result, about 2.5 years ago or so, some lawyers in Columbus, with the Columbus Bar Association, with the John Mercer Langston Bar Association, which is the African American Bar Association in Columbus, the U.S. Attorney's Office, folks from Ohio State University, nonprofit leaders, the YWCA, the United Way, and others, we began to have meetings to talk about what it is we might do as a community to make ourselves stronger and more able to deal with the divisions within our community. And as we began to talk about those subjects, the issue that coalesced was trust. And so we called ourselves Community Trust, because that's what we thought we were about. As I said a minute ago, the Dalai Lama said the opposite of fear is trust. And what we found as we looked in the communities, as interviews were done with community leaders, as we did research, was we found that there was distrust. There was fear of the other in our communities and the other in the neighboring community. So it isn't just, what's happening within our little community, but right next to us are people we don't know and don't have a relationship with and can't relate to and don't understand. And so we began to work on those issues. And as a result, we described our focus on our mission as it's now described on the screen. I think you have at your tables, in case this is hard to read, the same information. It is that it was important to us to begin to convene stakeholders in our community. And each of you is a stakeholder in our community. we began to convene stakeholders. And if we haven't had a chance to talk to you yet, I apologize for that. But we invite you, we look forward to speaking with you about these issues. You name the time and place, and we'll try to come. We also have meetings, so that you're welcome to attend meetings that we have. But we're very interested in convening stakeholders where they are to understand the deep concerns that you have in your community. We want to build trust between residents and between leaders and residents, and as a result, some of what we have convened to date includes city officials, the mayor, police chief, deputy chiefs, public safety folks, nonprofit leaders, faith leaders, and others. And so it's important for us to have those people meet each other, talk about the issues that concern them, and develop a relationship and a level of trust so that when something happens, they can pick up the phone and say, here's what I'm hearing. What are you hearing? What can we do? It's important to identify processes to deal justly with group concerns. And when we say justly, we don't mean simply listening, because listening without action is almost worse than not listening at all. So dealing justly means that you design a response and that you in fact respond to group concerns. We want to prepare the community to respond in a resourceful, coordinated way if something happens that does challenge trust. And we've seen what happens in some communities where trust is challenged, where people are divided deeply and emotionally, and we've seen what can happen in communities that are so divided that results not in violence, but permits and encourages communication and protest, venting, but perhaps without being completely destructive, either to human life or property. And finally, we want to develop some shared plans for acting when unrest occurs so that it is coordinated, it is responsive to the community's needs and concerns. And as I said, we are doing this work now in a way, and again, this I think is at your tables, in a way that has divided the work into some working groups. And I'll briefly talk about those. Gail, do I have more than 3 minutes? Where are you? I didn't get the baton until, just in my defense, okay? I mean, get the baton until 9:10. We're doing this work in a couple of areas. We're doing the work in terms of readiness, which is to say, what is the preparedness? What are the protocols? What are the roles for community leaders? What is the communication between the community leaders and the authorities at a time when unrest occurs? And Carter Stewart, who is a former U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Ohio, is helping to lead that effort. We're doing work that relates to future concerns and community resilience, and that is to say, anticipating what may come next so that we can work with each other across differences, to permit us to talk across our differences, to talk across our lack of understanding of each other about the concerns we have, and to make sure that we put in place a way to listen to each other, to permit the Department of Neighborhoods, to permit the city, to permit the business community, to permit others to respond to the concerns that we have. And Kim Braswell is a trauma-informed social justice consultant who works with us closely. I describe her as sort of the conscience of community trust because she ensures that everything we do is designed not to exploit any community as we listen. And so one of the ways we try to do that is with the Human Library. Has anybody heard of a Human Library before? No. In a Human Library, the books are people. And the people have a story to tell. And so the story to tell may be that they have dealt with serious mental issues. They've had a child who was slain in a police interaction. Those are the books. They come to tell their story, and people come to the Human Library and check out a book and have a one-on-one conversation with the person. but it's not in a way that victimizes the person who's telling the story. They want to tell their story. They want you to hear it. They want you to understand the trauma. They want you to then be in a position to act on what you've learned. And so we've participated in a human library that Kim Braswell primarily spearheaded in putting on. Gail's going to cut me off in a second. I'm going to talk about youth and education because that's important too, and we've got some young people here. I'm glad that the Department of Neighborhoods recognizes 20 under 20, that it recognizes the young people who are in this community, because they're not quite as patient as some of the old people are sometimes about the changes that need to take place in our communities. You know, Martin Luther King Jr. talked about the fierce urgency of now, that tomorrow is today, that we've got to act. And so we wanted to make certain that we didn't simply gloss over including youth and education in any sort of a plan that was designed to build trust in our community. And we're looking forward to having the youth participating in the activities that we are undertaking. I will talk about one tool and then I'll wrap up. The Divided Communities Project created a simulation. It is a preparedness exercise for cities that permits the city to sit there and in a conference room run through what they might do if something happened in their community that challenged trust. And so we actually did it with the city of Columbus, with Mayor Ginther and his staff. And we presented them with a situation that involved an immigration scenario where you've got a community that has a college, much like Bexley would have Capitol or Westerville would have Otterbein, and there are some incidents that are occurring on campus. There are also incidents occurring at a high school in this fictional town of Midland, which is remarkably close to the way Columbus, Ohio looks. It's about 1.5 million, and it's got this kind of composition, and it's got a large immigrant population, and on and on. And so it created a realistic setup so that we could then run this scenario with the mayor and his staff. And the mayor and his staff did that over a course of about 2 hours on a Friday afternoon. And the goal was to have them deal with the kinds of things that happen in the real world when there's conflict in communities. That you think you're addressing something on the campus in your suburb, and all of a sudden something else is happening over here, because that's the way these things unfold. And the truth is that the mayor and his staff did very well in this exercise. And so I want to make sure I leave you with that impression. But the other thing, and the most important part, was that there was learning that was involved with running this exercise. And that is, there are things you wish you had done. There are relationships you wish you had formed. There are people you wish you knew before the event occurs. And that's the lesson of this kind of simulation. You have to go out into your neighborhoods. You have to be present in your neighborhoods. You have to listen to your neighbors. And then you have to respond to your neighbors so that when something happens in your community, you're prepared to respond. You know who to call. They trust you when you say that you will do this, that you will do X or you will do Y. It is the act of acting before something happens that is so important. And so community trust, the effort that we're engaged in, is not designed to be reactive to the last thing that happened. It's not designed to be reactive to the last police community difficulty. It's designed to be proactive and look ahead, to say what is likely to happen next. What are we hearing from our community about where the troubles are? What can we do to address those justly in the right time? So, as I said, I know my time's up, and I know you've got workshops that are going to be fabulous today, so I will simply close with this. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you for a few minutes about community trust. I look forward to talking to and working with any of you in this effort if you'd like. We are not trying to do in the neighborhoods, what you are doing in your neighborhood. So all of the associations that you represent have their work. We're not trying to do your work for you. We are trying to connect people who are working towards a common good, towards the hopes that we described at the beginning of this presentation that we have for our community, to make it stronger, to make it more unified, to make it resilient, to make it peaceful, to make it caring. There were equality, yeah, sure, you're good. I can see Gail's about to yank the microphone. I thank you all for your attention. I'm going to be here the rest of the day. Bill and Nancy will be here for a time. You may leave us your emails on the backs of any of these pieces of paper, or talk to us directly, or give me a card, and we'll get you connected. Thank you very much for your attention.
I learned something. All right, everybody, we're about ready to break for our first session of the day. And before we do so, we have elected officials in the room. And I see some, but I don't want to don't want to miss anybody, because oh my. So if you are one of our honored elected officials, please stand so we can give you a round of applause. Yay. Thank you so much for being here. And if you have an opportunity, please go see our 20 under 20 people, because they might be taking your jobs one day, okay?
So I hope you've had a great morning session with some great breakout groups. My name's Todd Diefendorfer. I'm the Deputy Director of the Neighborhoods Department. Really appreciate you all being here today. We're part of this program now is to recognize some individuals who are doing really tremendous things in the community. So I appreciate you being here and helping to recognize them. Now it's my pleasure to bring to the podium Councilmember Rob Dorns. He's the chair of the Neighborhoods Committee, and in that work, a real champion for all of our communities around Columbus. Councilmember.
Thanks, sir. Good morning, everybody. First, I want to recognize a couple of my colleagues from Columbus City Council who have taken some time out of their day to join you all. Council President Shannon Hardin. My colleague, Emmanuel Remy. And I believe Councilmember Shayla Faber will be joining us here shortly. But first of all, I also want to just echo the thanks for everyone in this room for taking time out of your busy schedules to really take a deep dive and hear about ways that to be even more engaged in your community. And folks at Council, we appreciate everyone in this room taking time to be able to do that. Columbus is a special place, and it's a special place because of folks like you in this room. So I have the distinct pleasure of handing out the Dan Charles Award. This award was first presented in 2010, recognizing and named after a longtime Southside resident, Dan Charles. It honors a community leader who possesses the vision for their community and who have demonstrated the ability to inspire others to work in pursuit of that vision. And there's someone here today that I think embodies those very statements. In fact, I think a lot of folks in this room have been at one of her cleanups on the south or on the west side of the hilltop, and have had the ability to chat with her about the amazing work that she's done in her community to make it a better place. In fact, the honoree was at City Hall a couple weeks ago for a neighborhood appreciation dinner, and like always, she grabbed me aside and made sure that she had that few minutes to advocate for her community. And she stopped herself and said, I know you get this all the time. And I said, Lisa, I wish I had a Lisa Boggs in every neighborhood in the city of Columbus. And I truly mean that. I think folks on council in the city really mean that when we think about what community leadership really means. And that's why I'm so proud to honor the 2019 Dan Charles Award to Lisa Boggs.
I just want to thank everybody that's here today. Every day when I wake up. I think about what I need to do to improve my community, and that just keeps me going every day. But the people that I meet along the way, my city workers, council people, my neighbors, my family, everybody together has inspired me to keep going, and I'm shocked. I'm really shocked and honored, and I know Mr. Charles was a wonderful and giving Southside community activist, and I'm just honored to receive this award. And I just want everybody here to keep going, because I know you guys are on your mission too, to make your neighborhood a better place. And we just need to keep going. Each day is a new day, and every day we just got to keep on going. And I thank you guys for all you do for our city. Everybody in this room is working on something in their neighborhood or for our neighborhoods. Excuse me, I inhaled my sandwich a few minutes ago. And I'm a little shocked and a little humbled and a little surprised, but I'm happy, and I'm so happy my family's here because they're my biggest support. They're the ones I lean on all the time. My husband, my son, my daughter-in-law, my niece, my nephews, my sister, my brother. I mean, they hear all my complaints all the time. You guys hear my complaints all the time too. But it's all out of love, though. It's all out of love, and I know you guys are working for us. I know that. I know that for sure. I mean, you're the first council person, Ramey, that really got that trash thing going. I mean, he's working on trash issues. That's huge. It's a huge issue. And, you know, they listen to me, and I go on and on and on sometimes, and they still listen to me, even though I'm just like, I go on and on about neighborhoods and about what we need in our neighborhood. But I'm so happy that everybody's here to learn, and I'm here to learn all the time, but I'm mostly here to make connections with my people here and see my friends. I love coming to the neighborhood best practices every year. I love it. And I love seeing all the inspiring people here, because you're all doing wonderful things in this community, and I appreciate it. Thanks. Whoa.
Excellent. How about another round of applause? Thank you. We really do appreciate everything you do, so thank you. And to your family as well. Thank you for allowing her to do that. We appreciate that. Councilmember Favor, thank you for joining us. Glad you could be here. That's right. So now it is our great pleasure to present the 2019 20 Under 20 Awards. The 20 Under 20 Awards honor outstanding young people who contribute to their community through exemplary acts of volunteerism and advocacy. Their efforts represent good works in the area of arts, business, education, faith, seniors, youth, service, and health and wellness. Don't want to forget any of those top categories there. The dynamic young people here today have distinguished themselves through their volunteer service. Some of them have started new businesses, but really all of them together embody the theme that we have today of creating a safe and civil community. Each winner, so I'm going to call their name and their school. Each winner, they're going to come up on the stage. We're going to provide them with their recognition. So parents, if you want to take a photo, right, kind of in this area here is a good spot for you. And then we're going to ask all of our winners to stay in front of the stage where we're going to take a group photo. So our first honoree is Delara Alpe of Worthington Kilbourne. Welcome up. I have this for you. Right here in the middle. Our next honoree is Miles Balfour from Columbus College of Art and Design. Have to get your name, get the right one for you here. Doesn't help him drop him on the ground beforehand. There you go, sir. Thank you. That's right, right in the middle for a photo. Our next honoree is Markel Barron from Columbus Alternative High School. Great job. Now, unfortunately, our next honoree couldn't join us, but still want to recognize them. Sherrod Bowens from St. Charles Preparatory School. Next, we have Washington Cole from North Columbus International High School. Congratulations. All right, Brianna Jordan from Ohio Christian University. Let's see. Give that to you right now. Thank you. Next, we have James Kemp from Ohio Dominican University. Next is Inni Kati, Northside Christian School. Next, Mackenzie Lewis, Columbus Arts and Technology Academy. We got off script here a little bit. JL Haynes Lee from Ohio Virtual Academy. No. Next honoree is Aiden Lippert, St. Charles Preparatory School. Next honoree is Frankie Madowski, Hamilton Township High School. Our next honoree is Edith Anna Malley from school. Now let's recognize Jordan Mitchell, Hamilton Township High School. Next, Carl Moore from Linden McKinley STEM. Shanice Riggins from Cristo Ray High School. It's certainly nice to have this challenge of so many dynamic young folks that fill up the front that the photographer has to start working from the side of the stage to take photos. It's a good problem for us to have here. Our next honoree could not be here today. It's Drew Samuelson from Columbus Torah Academy. Now I'd like to recognize Aaliyah Smith, West High School. And our final honoree for today, rounding out our under 20 for 2019, Fatuma Yassin, Columbus Alternative High School. Now we'll take a quick moment, organize ourselves for a group photo, and then move to one more award. So, I know we always wonder if our community supports young people. I'd say by the number of cell phones I saw there taking photos, we do a pretty good job here in Columbus. So thank you for being here, and thanks to our young folks. Now please join me in welcoming to the podium Judge Eileen Paley to present the Courthouse to the Community Award. Judge Paley is a former member of Columbus City Council and is a strong partner of ours in the work to strengthen all of our neighborhoods. Judge Paley.
I am thrilled to be back in Neighborhood Best Practices, back with all of my friends. I'm proud to present the first community award for Courthouse to the Community, the Award of Excellence. This award will be given to an individual who personifies the mission statement of the Franklin County Municipal Court. Our mission is to provide justice, resolve disputes in a fair, accessible, and courteous manner, and to serve as a resource to the community. We are here today to inform our community partners of all our good work that we are performing in the courthouse. I hope you learned today of all our programs that we are providing and some of the firsts that we are very proud of. When all 15 judges voted on the recipient of this award, it was unanimous who should receive the first Courthouse to the Community Award. A lot of you probably already know him since he is out in the community a lot. He has no idea he's receiving this award because he's a humble man and he would have talked me out of it if I would have told him. But I was challenged with the task of finding someone who personifies the vision that we want leaders of Columbus to see. The Self-Help Resource Center is a special project of the municipal court that provides free, let me repeat, free walk-in informational services to self-represented parties. The center provides a variety of essential navigational services for individuals to file or respond to court documents, have their records sealed, which in turn removes a barrier to employment. The center also assists with landlord-tenant, creditor-debtor issues, and helps individuals respond to small claims and general division matters. The most important impact of the Self-Help Resource Center is its ability to make justice accessible to all. The center identifies key resources that help people successfully resolve their legal matters so that they don't face the negative consequences that could prevent them from moving forward and leading productive lives. In the spirit of the Department of Neighborhood's Best Practices Conference and its theme of the power of us, opening doors to create safe and civil communities, the Franklin County Municipal Court is proud to honor the efforts of the Court Self-Help Resource Center and its founding member, Robbie Southers. Come on up here, Robbie. And while he's coming up here, I want to introduce two of my judges, Judge Amy Salerno and Judge Mingo.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. Yeah, there we go. Can we
put you in the middle?
You in the middle?
There you go.
Well, that concludes the awards portion. Gail will be up in a moment to give you directions for this afternoon. Thank you.